Hello fellow outsiders, and welcome to today's Q&A episode. Here we are, 100,000 subscribers. I couldn't be more pleased with the response that I've gotten over the years from all of you. I really appreciate everyone viewing on a regular basis and commenting, liking, sharing, all of that. So I'm here because of you guys, so I am so thankful. In one of my previous videos, I put the question out to you guys to ask me anything, and I would answer the most popular questions, and once I was over 100,000. So here we are today, and I'm excited to answer them. So I have my beautiful wife, Mrs. Outsider here, who is behind the scenes, behind the camera, and she'll be asking me the questions from you guys, and I'll be doing my best to answer them.
Hello Outsiders, I'm so happy to be here with you today. The first question is from Crouton Cracker Jacks. He says, nice to hear that the work hasn't stopped because the tractor is down. Any chance we'll see how you're doing the windows and doors?
Well, thanks Well, thank you, Crouton Cracker Jacks. It's always great hearing from you. And if you guys don't know, Crouton Cracker Jacks has an amazing food channel, so I recommend you check him out. Anyway, thank you for your encouragement over the years. And as far as the window frames and the door frames are concerned, yes, I will be showing the whole process of me making them, and that will be a part of the next episode of Log Cabin on a Budget, which is episode 10. It's coming soon, probably sometime in December, so keep your fingers crossed for that. I'm so excited to get that episode out. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Okay,
question 2 is from Raspberry Rock. Here's my question. Can you come help work on my cabin?
Thank you for the offer. That sounds like a lot of fun. I love building log cabins, just for the sake of building them, actually. The idea that we get to stay in them is just a nice byproduct of that. But anyway, long story short, sounds like a great offer. I appreciate it, but I think I got to finish my cabin first.
yeah, we do.
Yeah.
Mrs. Outsider says so.
Finish it.
Finish it. Question 3 is from Roger Renninger. Will you be using all natural materials, shingles, or metal for your roof?
That's a good question, actually, because that's a question that a lot of people have when they're building their cabins, especially if you're trying to keep it a little more traditional. I love natural materials, and that is reflected in the foundation of the cabin, as you can see, that we're working on right now. I have fieldstone and these big boulders for the footings of my cabin, and I've worked very hard to make sure that they're put in properly, and so that we have a very sturdy foundation for the cabin, so that this cabin will hopefully outlast me, and something that my grandchildren and maybe even our great-grandchildren can stand. All that to say is I love natural materials, but as far as the roof is concerned, I think I'm going to go with a tin roof, and that's because although I love cedar shakes and just the beauty of them, they just take more maintenance and they take a lot more work to apply to the roof, whereas a tin roof is much easier to install, and it lasts much longer. If I find a better material, I'm going to use it. So yes, for the roof, I will be using tin.
And Mrs. Outsider loves the sound of rain on a tin roof.
It's a good sound. I mean, it drives some people crazy, but
I can't wait for it.
But others, it's like
calming.
It's calming.
It's very peaceful.
Sleep.
Mm-hmm. Question 4 is from Hannah Hart. Have you ever been disturbed by a wild animal in the woods? Also, how can you prevent that from happening? Love from Brazil.
Whoa, there you go.
Wow.
All the way from Brazil. Thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. The answer is yes. I have been disturbed, or I have been confronted by wild animals before, of all shapes and sizes. There are a few instances that really stand out to me. One of those times, I was blazing a trail through some really thick muskeg, and a black bear came up behind me. So that was an interesting moment, and all I had in my hand at the time was a machete. And there was another time that a lynx was following me down the trail in the wintertime. And lynx are really beautiful animals, and so I saw them quite often around. There have also been a few instances where I've been shadowed by wolves or coyotes where I haven't really gotten a clear view of them, but I have seen them just through the trees. I would say the most memorable experience I've had with a wild animal is when my dad and I were walking through the bush after working on the log cabin project for the day, and I decided to do a wolf call to see if any coyotes or wolves in the area would respond, being that they are territorial animals. So I did my wolf call, expecting to hear maybe a response howl or several response howls, but surprisingly, all of a sudden we realized we were surrounded by a pack of what we believe were coy wolves. I think they were probably a mix between gray coyotes and maybe they had a bit of Algonquin wolf in them. They did seem a little bigger than some of the coyotes I've seen. But yeah, as soon as I did the wolf call, they appeared all around us, which was interesting because that means they were already there, probably tracking us as we went. And there was one coy wolf in particular that was running straight towards me and almost ran right into me until I stopped it. The thing was, it didn't realize that I was there. That's why it almost ran into me. It wasn't attacking, it was just running into the direction that the call came from. And the really neat thing is, in that instance, I had my camcorder with me, and I was able to get some footage of the coy wolves around us. But unfortunately, I didn't get the first shot of that one coy wolf running right head on to me. It was after that I quickly got my camera out and I started filming. And so I'm sure you guys are interested in seeing the footage, so here it is.
Oh, it's going. No, it's still there. No way.
If you're interested in seeing that full episode with a full story behind it, I'm going to provide a link for that in the description below. But anyway, as far as the wild animals are concerned, although I've met up with different animals, I've never once really felt in any immediate danger, although I have felt uncomfortable at times. With the bear following me, it was more curious. With the lynx, I believe it was curious too, just figuring out who I was. Maybe I was a new scent in the area, my tracks were a little different, and it was just seeing what I was all about. The same thing with the pack of coy wolves. They never made any aggressive moves towards us, especially once they realized we were humans. They took off fairly fast after we stood against them and started making some noise. So my recommendation for keeping confrontation with wild animals to a minimum are just simple things like make lots of noise where you are. Just make sure that everything in the forest knows that you're there, and that minimizes a lot of attacks because a lot of bigger animals attack when they're surprised. Another great thing to do is have a dog with you. If you're able to set a fire where you are, that's a great defense against animals as they try to avoid any sort of fire. I know that some people carry guns with them as a form of protection, whether it's a shotgun or a sidearm. Since I'm Canadian, we have very strict gun laws, and so I rarely carry a gun with me. Quite often I have an axe with me and I have my hunting knife with me. If I'm in a spot where I know there's a high density of predatory animals, I'll carry a bear banger with me. And I know some people, they carry bear spray or things of that nature. So you'll just have to see what's in your area. I know Brazil is going to be very different from Canada, so there might be some different tools you can use to deter bigger animals from confronting you.
This next question is from Dennis. Dennis says, "That's awesome that your dad is helping you with this project. I lost my dad 3 weeks ago today, and I have a lot of questions for him that I'll never get to ask. Since this is a question video for your subscribers to ask you questions, I ask you to think about this. What questions do you have for your dad while he is still alive? Don't wait until it's too late. Keep up the great work, Dennis."
Wow. Dennis, I just want to say, first of all, I'm very sorry for your loss. I know that must have been extremely hard. to have that happen to you. And it sounds like you had a really great relationship with your dad. And you know, that's the important thing, is that you carry that in your heart. And so I think I join with all the other fellow outsiders watching this in just sharing our deepest condolences with you. But thank you for your question. I really appreciate it. That's a heavy one. That's a really heavy one to think about. You know, a question to ask my dad. I think if I were to ask him anything, I think I would ask him, what's the most important thing that he wants me to know? And I have a close enough relationship with him that I believe I know what he would say, and that is love God with all of your heart, and love your family with all of your heart as well. And my dad, he gave his life to Jesus and has been a Christ follower since he was a young man, and it has shaped his life tremendously. I know that if he was on camera with me right now, he would say the same thing. And so the way that he is now, the great dad that he is because he has relied heavily on his heavenly Father for guidance and for the power to be a good dad and to be a good man. And so I try to do my best to model the example that my dad has given me, just to follow after Jesus. And you know, really he's the answer in my life as well. If I could ask my dad any other question, I think I would just ask him to tell me stories. I just love talking to him and hearing about his experiences, and I want to keep those alive. But the most important thing to me about my relationship with my dad is not the questions so much, but the experiences. And so I consider it a huge blessing that we get to share the experience of building a log cabin together, just living life in the bush, and we both just have been drawn to this self-sufficient lifestyle, working with our hands, being creative. And so that's something that really binds us together. And those are moments that I will never forget, moments that I'll truly treasure. And so I'm so glad that he's been able to share this journey with me as well.
And yes, Dad has awesome stories. I've loved coming into the family and hearing all of his stories, and yeah, I definitely can hear them over and over again, and they never get old. Dennis, once again, we are just so sorry for your loss, and pass on our true heartfelt condolences, and thank you for giving us all something to think about.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, this next one is from Bonnie. Bonnie says, congrats on 100,000K. This has probably been asked before, but what inspired you to want to live this type of lifestyle?
Oh, good question. I would say that it just lends to my personality first of all. Again, just being self-sufficient, living off the land has always appealed to me. I grew up watching the documentary from Dick Proenneke, Alone in the Wilderness, and that really captured my imagination. As well, it stems back to memories that I've made with my dad as a young kid. We would go out and do winter survival camping, which was always so much fun. And that has always stuck with me as well. And what I love about the dream of the log cabin is that it has such a family connection there too as well, that I'm not just having an adventure building and creating and making this cabin, but to me the cabin is a space that I can create with my own hands for my family. It's something that I can provide for them. And you know, to me the log cabin symbolizes family time, where we can all go out there and have Thanksgiving dinner together. I see us by the fireplace, you know, late at night with a cup of hot chocolate. I see my wife and daughter and I all going on a walk around the forest that the cabin is in, and snowshoeing and doing all these things. So for me, the cabin, as much of an adventure it is to build and create, it's also family. It's also just wrapped up in love as well.
All right, so this next one is from Rye Bread. And Rye Bread asks, in your wild edibles video, you talk a lot about utilizing the edibles in a survival situation, but I would like to hear about some kinds of edibles that can be used more on a regular basis. Say you are living entirely off the land. Name your top 5 most widespread, annually renewable edibles. Around all the time, bonus for being in a wide variety of climates and locations.
Well, thank you, Rye Bread. That's a great username. That's a tough question. because most wild edibles don't last all year round. There are seasons and there are rhythms to the land. So that is tough to answer. But cattail comes to mind. Now I know cattail is protected in some states and in some parts of the world, so you'll have to see what your local laws are. But the great thing about cattail is you can use most parts of the plant at different times of year, so it is a year-round plant. Even during the winter time, you can still dig up the roots and eat the roots, and the roots are rich in starch, which is very important in the plant kingdom. A lot of plants have vitamins and minerals, so that's easy to find. But as far as starches are concerned, fats and proteins, those are harder to find in plants, and so I would try and aim for plants with those things. Clover is another good plant because it contains a high amount of protein, and now clover is only available from spring to fall. Wintertime it's not, but it is a good plant otherwise. I love dandelions, and they're available across a wide scope of North America and through Europe, I believe. You can use every part of the dandelion plant. My favorite is to use the root because I make dandelion decaf coffee with the root, and I actually have an episode where I do make dandelion coffee. And so I'm going to include a link in the description below for that. Because really, what is more important than coffee? Even when you're surviving, coffee is so important. As you can see, I've got my coffee here with me. What else? Acorns are wonderful. They're probably one of the best wild edibles you can get your hands on. Unfortunately, they are only available during the autumn. But you can store them if you do it properly. And acorns, they do take a bit of processing to make them edible, but they contain high amounts of fat, and they also contain protein as well. Any kind of nut is a high source of protein and fat, so if you can find any kind of tree that produces a nut, I know in my area black walnut trees are all over the place. And so I've harvested black walnuts before, and they taste amazing, and they're a really rich source of, again, proteins and fats. So I don't know what part of the world you're in, but research any type of nut-bearing tree or plant in your area, and that would be a great place to start as well.
I have to say too, the dandelion coffee was awesome. Especially we're avid coffee drinkers, and very impressed by the dandelion coffee.
Yeah, dandelion coffee has its own flavor, but if you gave it to someone who is a coffee drinker and told them it was coffee, they wouldn't know that it was made from dandelion.
Definitely.
And if you actually look on the ingredients of some decaf coffee packaging, they are made with dandelion root and sometimes with chicory root, which I've also made coffee with.
So this is our last question, and it comes from That Mountain. They say, my question, can you please make your outro video of you taking the axe out of the stump instead of replaying the chop in? Vid starts, chop down, vid ends, pull axe out.
Okay, I got you. That was our most popular question, right?
It was.
Yeah,
that was the most popular.
People really got behind that question.
Yeah.
So if I understand it correctly, what you're asking me is with my intro, you see me slamming the axe down into the stump, but what you want to see is a little bit of closure at the end of the episode, where instead of I just do a repeat of the axe going into the stump, you see me pulling the axe back out, and that's how I end the episode. And that is actually a really good idea. So I think I'm going to do it. Just give me a second here.